In Provence, the Spanish Festoon flies in a single generation from the end of March until the end of June, and favours dry and stony areas in the Garrigue, where small, much localized populations live. In the early morning, or when it's cold, this butterfly can be seen with wings closed. But as soon as the sun appears, the butterfly opens its wings to absorb maximum solar energy. Then flies away. Males emerge ahead of the females and stay close to where they have emerged, and are very territorial. The male occupies a post and patrols energetically over its territory with a low, swaying flight, and briefly stops foraging in order to replenish its energy. And returns to a perch from where it looks around. From time to time, it makes a small inspection tour, hoping to encounter a female, and then, if unsuccessful, returns to a perch to conserve its energy. It chases the other males passing its territory, and sometimes rushes towards a passing butterfly, assuming it's a female. It feeds briefly, at regular intervals. As soon as a female approaches the male, he goes to meet her, and a short, agitated nuptial flight follows, the male pursuing the female. He catches her and blocks her between his folded wings. Then they fall together into the vegetation, where mating ensues. The sexes are similar. After about an hour, the butterflies separate, the male leaving first. The male returns to a perch. While the female, without delay, begins laying her eggs individually on the flowers and leaves of its preferred plant, Birthwort. The eggs look like small pearls. From time to time, the female rests between egg-laying. Occasionally, eggs are deposited on the same plant, and sometimes even side by side. The wings of the Spanish festoon are adorned with carmine red orbs, but this species is very variable. Here, a Spanish festoon with orbs on the top of its wings which are not carmine red. And with this Spanish festoon, the red is rather faded and not very pronounced, compared to those with bright red colours characteristic of this species. The eggs incubate between 7 and 15 days, depending on the weather conditions. As the egg matures, you can see the little caterpillar moving through the eggshell. At term, the caterpillar nibbles a hole in the shell in order to free itself. It will take almost half an hour for the caterpillar to get out of the egg. The caterpillar orientates and goes in search of a flower of Birthwort. Where it will take shelter and will feed from inside the flower. The caterpillar doesn't eat the eggshell. This spider, a predator of caterpillars, tries its luck, but doesn't succeed in capturing the caterpillar nestled in the flower tube. Spider takes up position on top of the flower lobe and waits patiently until the caterpillar gets out, but in vain, because the caterpillar will not leave its shelter before its first molt. In its shelter, the caterpillar is also protected from the rain and bad spring weather. At the end of its second instar, most of the flower lobe has been eaten. Some caterpillars also feed on the flower tube or ovary. The small caterpillar still retires into the tube of the flower, and it's wise because wasps roam around the plants in search of prey. At its second instar, the caterpillar is lighter in colour and adventures outside the flower in search of food. It feeds preferentially on flowers, rich in proteins. In the morning, as soon as the sun rises, this caterpillar leaves the cavity of the ovary where it has stayed overnight and goes to feed. This time it has been feeding on an ovary, which, when undamaged, will ripen into a small green fruit resembling a tiny melon. Here are some other inhabitants, which are harmless to the caterpillars. As long as its size allows it, the caterpillar retreats into the flower as soon as it feels exposed to danger. It even completes its second molt there. At its third instar, the caterpillar is yellow in colour, including its dorsal spines, which are now clearly visible. The arrival of a mature caterpillar in search of a flower makes the younger one withdraw. The caterpillars of the Spanish Festoon are not as tolerant of each other as those of the southern Festoon. The mature caterpillar eats quickly and moves often. When the spring is dry and the host plant dries out, it is more difficult for late-born caterpillars to feed, and competition between caterpillars at different instars becomes tough. The yellow-coloured caterpillar also feeds on more exposed places because while feeding, it ingests and stores aristolochic acids, which make it toxic for certain predators. When it's hot, the caterpillar goes down in search of a shady spot under a leaf where it will rest. And then resumes its activities in the end of the afternoon. Well grown, it is now less fearful of predators of its own size. And this spider has no chance. And luckily, the caterpillar has no after effects from this attack. The caterpillar moves a little further and feeds as if nothing has happened. At the end of the day, it rests on a leaf, enjoying the last rays of sun. The eggs that do not hatch after 15 days are often parasitized and vary in colour from black to marbled white. At the end of 3 weeks, trichogrammas emerge from these eggs, which are tiny parasitoids of about 0.3 millimeters in size. From this egg, 7 individuals emerged. The parasitoid unfolds its wings. On another plant, an empty egg with the characteristic hole of trichogrammas. The impact of trichogrammas is not harmful to the populations of the southern festoon. Here a caterpillar completes its 3rd molt. The dorsal spines are now more orange. At the end of the 4th stage, a row of small black spots appears on its flanks. More mobile, the caterpillar sometimes changes birthwort plant and now also feeds on the leaves. Just before its last molt, the black spots are well visible. At its last instar, the caterpillar is still yellow with black spots, characteristic of this species. The caterpillars have many variations. Here a much darker caterpillar travels down to the leaf litter to rest in the shade. When it returns to feed, it doesn't care about destroying the refuge of a small late emergent caterpillar. It even swings it with its head off the twig. And then continues to feed without concern. Luckily, the small caterpillar is unharmed. It isn't easy to find a shelter that's not on a mature caterpillar's menu. But happily, these last ones change plants regularly. Gradually, the caterpillars become pinkish with orange spines. The full-grown caterpillar orientates. And then moves towards a dense tuft of grass to undergo its nymphal stage. It weaves a loose silken net. Then, after a few days, the transformation into a chrysalis has been accomplished. The chrysalis overwinters inside the grass, well protected from the cold. The next spring, a few days before emergence, the chrysalis squirms energetically. And several days later, the butterfly appears. After an hour, it flies a little further, rests a while, cleans itself, and flies off to feed. Although since 1993 the Spanish Festoon has been protected by French law, this mythical butterfly remains much localized. To keep populations of the Spanish Festoon, the protection of its breeding habitat and therefore of its host plant, the Birthwort, is necessary. It's such a joy and splendour to see this fabulous butterfly flying in our Provençal hills.